Welcome to this explainer. If you have a pension, a life insurance policy, or honestly, any sort of long-term retirement account, there is actually a very high probability that your financial future is quietly tethered to one specific machine. Today, we're focusing on literally one of the most massive structural shifts in modern finance, and we're going to explore it by zeroing in on the companies sitting right at the epicenter of it all, Apollo Global Management. We're going to look past the superficial headlines and decode exactly how they've evolved from their distressed debt roots into this inescapable private credit and insurance powerhouse. If you really want to understand the future of global yield, well, you absolutely have to understand the Apollo machine.
Okay, let's dive into this. What exactly is Apollo? When you hear that name, there's a really good chance you immediately think of a traditional private equity firm, right? The classic Wall Street titans buying out companies, restructuring them, and selling them off for a profit. But honestly, that outdated stereotype completely misses what the modern company actually does. If you're analyzing them solely as a buyout shop, your analysis is just going to be wrong right out of the gate. The absolute fastest and most accurate way to understand the modern Apollo is to think of them as a scaled yield manufacturing system. It's kind of like a massive power grid. On one side, you have retirees, insurance companies, and pensions, and they need a constant, steady hum of electricity. In this case, that's reliable, high-quality yield to pay out their obligations. On the other side, you've got companies and borrowers who need a massive surge of power up front, flexible capital to build infrastructure or grow their businesses. Now, traditional banks are increasingly pulling back from holding this kind of credit risk because of heavy regulations. So Apollo is essentially the transformer station sitting perfectly in the middle. They originate private credit and use long-duration insurance liabilities to turn that credit into recurring fees and spread income. To really appreciate how they engineered this machine, we need to quickly trace their timeline. They were founded back in 1990, right in the wake of the Drexel-Burnham-Lambert collapse, and that timing is absolutely critical. It means their very DNA is rooted in navigating the ashes of complex, distressed debt. Growing up in that high-stakes environment trained Apollo to obsess over downside protection, and that is a skill that's absolutely mandatory when you're managing billions in life insurance liabilities. Fast forward to 2009, they launched the insurance company Athene, which ultimately became their crucial liability engine. Then, by 2022, Apollo and Athene officially merged into one seamlessly integrated platform. And hitting 2025, they've built this mega-scale origination factory that goes way, way beyond just buying what other firms are selling. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what sets them apart from their biggest peers in the alternative assets space. Let's look at the broader landscape for a second. Blackstone is the undisputed scale leader, largely driven by massive real estate holdings and a perpetual capital distribution engine aimed at global wealth. Then you have KKR, the diversified alternative asset manager deeply tied to its pioneering history in leveraged buyouts. But Apollo? They're structurally different. They are fundamentally credit-first and insurance integrated. They have an inherently asset-heavy model built from the ground up on originating yield and matching it directly with long-duration liabilities.
Layer 1, the credit and insurance flywheel. So this flywheel works in 3 synchronized steps. Step 1 is originating private credit assets. Now, in modern finance, capital itself is actually pretty abundant. The true bottleneck, literally the hardest part of the entire equation, is finding safe, high-quality places to put that money. Because if you just go out and buy standard loans off the secondary market, you're competing with thousands of other funds, and that drives the yield down to basically nothing. Apollo solves this by controlling the origination directly, negotiating their own custom loans. Step 2 is gathering long-duration liabilities. They do this primarily through Athene, which just steadily pulls in billions of dollars through retirement annuities and funding agreements. And then step 3 is the monetization. Apollo places those custom-originated assets onto Athene's balance sheet, or into third-party managed funds, and they earn both management fees and the spread income between the assets yield and the liabilities cost. It's an incredible loop.
To sum up this first layer, Apollo calls their broad investment approach yield, hybrid, and equity. And that exact order is highly intentional. Yield is their massive, overwhelming priority. They're not out there chasing the absolute riskiest, highest coupon leveraged loans. Instead, they're deeply, deeply focused on investment-grade private credit and complex asset-backed finance. By maintaining strict control over the entire chain, from the initial origination of the loan all the way to the final balance sheet matching, they effectively turn illiquid real-world assets into customized private fixed income. And that perfectly aligns with the long-term duration of their insurance liabilities.
Let's move to and see how this builds into Layer 2, decoding 2025 financials.
Just wrap your head around this number. $938 billion. That was Apollo's total assets under management at year-end 2025. Out of that massive pool,
$709 billion was actively generating fees. To put that sheer scale into perspective, $938 billion is actually larger than the entire gross domestic product of countries like Switzerland or Saudi Arabia. It is just a staggering pool of capital that firmly establishes them as a central infrastructure platform in this global shift away from traditional bank balance sheets. Now, what's really interesting about this is exactly where that capital sits. Out of that massive pie, $749 billion is dedicated entirely to credit, compared to just $189 billion in equity. I mean, this completely dismantles that old private equity stereotype we talked about earlier. Apollo is overwhelmingly a credit-led platform. Their entire architecture is built primarily to feed the insatiable yield demands of its massive insurance and retirement services ecosystem.
And they definitely aren't just sitting idle on that capital. In 2025 alone, Apollo originated $309 billion in credit. Hear me on this. Origination is the absolute lifeblood of this company. Again, if they simply bought the exact same syndicated corporate loans as everyone else, their excess return would just vanish as investors compete away the yield. But by originating $309 billion of their own highly complex, structured assets, they successfully capture illiquidity and complexity premiums, and they do it without having to take on uncontrolled credit risk.
All of this relentless origination activity feeds directly into their earnings structure. First up, we have $2.528 billion. This represents their FRE, or fee-related earnings, for 2025. This is the highly durable, recurring asset management fee base of the company. And what makes this so incredibly powerful is that it operates at a phenomenal 56.6% margin. Think about that. For every single dollar of fee revenue coming in, nearly 57 cents drops straight to the bottom line. Wall Street absolutely loves this kind of revenue because it's sticky, it's predictable, and it doesn't rely on constantly selling off companies in a volatile market. As long as they keep managing assets and deploying capital, this engine just keeps humming. Now contrast that durable fee stream with this next figure, $3.361 billion. This is their SRE, or spread-related earnings. This represents the insurance side of the machine, generated primarily by Athene. In 2025, Athene earned enough on its total investments to clear a 1.23% net spread over the cost of its liabilities. Now, I know a 1.23% margin might sound kind of tiny at first glance, but look, if you're earning 5% on an asset and paying out 3.77% on an annuity liability, you are pocketing that 1.23% difference. When you apply a 1.23% spread across hundreds of billions of dollars in assets, it generates an absolute torrent of cash. However, as we'll see, it operates on totally different mechanics than the fee business.
So when Wall Street analysts look at Apollo, they can't just look at standard GAAP revenue alone. They have to carefully separate the highly durable asset management fees, the FRE, from the massive but much more macro-sensitive insurance spread earnings, the SRE. And then they have to further separate both of those from principal investing income, which sat at $338 million in 2025. That bucket represents the much more volatile, cyclical realization of their investments.
Layer 3, valuation drivers and systemic risks. Because Apollo is part asset manager and part massive insurance platform, it requires a strict sum-of-the-parts valuation framework. You simply cannot paint all their earnings with the exact same multiple brush. The fee-related earnings deserve a high multiple because they're incredibly durable and predictable, kind of like a software company's recurring revenue. The spread-related earnings, though, get a variable multiple. That's totally dependent on the ongoing stability of that 1.23% net spread and the underlying asset quality. And principal investing gets a discounted multiple because of its highly cyclical nature. Now, this intense complexity is absolutely part of Apollo's protective moat, but it also makes them incredibly difficult to seamlessly analyze from the outside.
And that inherent complexity comes with very real systemic risks, especially as Apollo pushes aggressively into the global wealth channel to sell fixed income replacement products to everyday retail investors. Let's consider a real-world example from the Apollo Debt Solutions Business Development Company, or BDC, in March 2026. Shareholders requested repurchases equal to roughly 11.2% of the fund's outstanding shares. However, the fund had strict rules limiting redemptions to just 5% per quarter. This is a very real, impartial look at exactly what happens when retail investor sentiment suddenly shifts in a semi-liquid investment product.
So the crucial point here is this fundamental tension. Apollo wants to democratize private credit for everyday wealth clients, opening up entirely new channels of capital. But private credit simply cannot be made fully liquid without changing its very nature. The illiquidity of the underlying loans, which, by the way, is exactly what generates that highly attractive yield premium in the first place, is the exact same reason why redemption gates must exist when investors suddenly want all their money back at once.
But liquidity mismatches in retail products are just one piece of the risk puzzle. If Apollo chases yield without maintaining strict underwriting discipline, the entire Athene spread machine could falter. Credit losses are the ultimate danger here. Poor underwriting doesn't just hurt a standalone fund, it directly damages Athene's insurance balance sheet. Spread compression is another serious risk. If interest rates change unfavorably or liability costs rise, that critical 1.23% net spread could completely vanish. There's also the risk of liability flight where institutional funding agreements might shift away to competitors. And finally, there's the sheer complexity discount. Apollo's labyrinthine structure of reinsurers and originators risks obscuring deeper vulnerabilities from both regulators and investors alike, which makes it way harder to predict how a true panic would ripple through the system.
Ultimately, there are two competing perspectives on Apollo today. The bull case sees them as the indispensable central infrastructure for global yield, a structural replacement for traditional banks, fully armed with captive, long-duration capital from Athene. The bear case, on the other hand, sees a dangerously complex, asset-heavy machine that's highly vulnerable to spread compression, strict insurance regulation, and the inherent liquidity mismatches of packaging private credit for the masses. Both of these arguments are entirely valid, both are rooted in fact, and both are playing out in real time, right now, across the markets.
Everything we've explored today, from their 1990s distressed debt roots to the integrated Athene flywheel, all the way to their staggering $938 billion in AUM, it all leads us directly to this final, defining question. It's not a matter of whether Apollo can simply generate yield. We know definitively that they can. The true test of this mega machine is whether they can consistently originate high-quality yield without sacrificing their downside discipline through a full, punishing credit cycle. That is the ultimate test of the modern yield hunter. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I highly encourage you to keep questioning the numbers behind the narrative.